Hey, friends. Welcome to the Divorce Curious podcast. I'm your host, Lisa Mitchell. That doesn't matter, though, because I do have a knack for bringing on much smarter, much cooler people than me. And today is no exception. Before I introduce my guest, I'm just going to caveat this that we have the day we're recording this is Friday, March 13th, and it is very much Friday the 13th on us. So we've had some technology challenges and it's 40-mile-an-hour winds here. So if you hear anything crazy in the background, no, you didn't. You might even get a dog bark just for fun. So we're going to just give all the grace and space today as we engage in this conversation. I promise you it'll be worth sticking around through all the chaos because we have some good things lined up for us. But without further ado, I'm going to introduce Melissa Divaris Thompson. And you have probably seen her on Instagram if you're on TikTok. She is dropping bangers all the time. Every single video is a truth bomb. It's a yes, it's a hell yeah, it's like an exactly. I slid into the DMs as one does when you have a podcast about being divorce curious and begged her to come on the show. And she said, yes. So we are going to take full advantage of having her brilliance on the show. So Melissa, welcome to the Divorce Curious podcast.
Oh my goodness, Lisa, what an amazing introduction. I'm so thrilled to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm going to tell you, like, there's so many terrible things on social media that I've thought about leaving more times than I can count. And I am off TikTok now. I kissed my 60,000 followers goodbye on TikTok and I haven't missed it at all. But I think one of the beautiful pieces that come from being on the platforms and engaging with social media is that anybody, anywhere has the opportunity to learn from someone
Yes.
like you. And one of the reasons I resonated most with your content is it is no frills, no thrills, no technical, preachy, teachy stuff. You speak so directly to the person that is in it, like going through it. And for most of the people watching and listening to this right now, you don't end up on a podcast called Divorce Curious on accident, right? there's this deep dissatisfaction and a deep wondering that so many people have right now of, is this it? This the best my relationship can be? Is this the best I can hope for happiness or for love or for partnership? And I get it, right? Like I was there. I feel that deeply. And I think one of the things you do so beautifully through your practice and through your, whether it's 60 seconds or a couple of minutes, you're in it with us. And thank you for that. Can you start off by telling us a little bit about why you choose to share what you do on social media and kind of the impact that you've seen by putting it all out there for us?
Sure, absolutely. I think where it first started was I had someone in my life who kept talking about their TikTok therapist. And I kept thinking, your TikTok therapist? Like, there's such a thing on TikTok? I thought it was about dancing and, following trends and, shaking your booty. And they kept talking about it week to week and the value that they were getting. And I think in the profession that I'm in, because I've been in it so long, because I love what I do, some of the things that I think, some of the things that I say, I automatically assumed that people knew that information.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, no one's going to want to know about that. Everybody knows that. And when I went on TikTok and I started posting videos, people started commenting and saying, were you in my journal last week? Or were you in my marriage? Or were you in my relationship? Or were you on that date? I didn't know this, or I wish someone had told me this years ago. And so I started to see the value and the need for digestible information because there's so many great therapists and psychologists and people in the field. And I felt like if I can make this information more attainable and digestible for people to actually implement into their everyday lives, let me try and do that. Let me try to be helpful. So that's where this all started.
Yeah, I'm so glad you did. And it's relevant, it's accessible. I feel like for so many people that I talk to and that I work with, they don't know. They don't have the answers. You only know your lived experience. Your only point of reference around relationships is what you've seen modeled in your own family unit or what you've seen in pop culture or on TV or what your friends are talking about at wine night.
Correct.
you don't really have like this broader view. So it's hard to know what good looks like when you don't maybe have any access to that. And for so many people, especially, with the rising cost of healthcare, especially around mental health support or counseling services, it
Yeah.
really is just so out of reach
Yes.
for so many
Yes.
people. It's like, well, I either feed my kid or I get the support and professional advice that I need. And I guess, I'll have to wait. I'll have to try to find it somewhere else. So thank you for your generosity with your experience and your expertise and for making it a conversation that's safe to have.
Mm.
You're a lot like me. I think we just kind of say the quiet parts out loud and hope that somebody can borrow our courage that way. What's some of the most surprising feedback or interactions that you've had based on what you've put out there?
I think for me, it's been certain things, my videos are about a minute, maybe a minute and a half, and certain things that can make such an impact or that people don't know. Like I've done a few red flag videos and people are
Mm.
like, whoa, that's a red flag in a relationship. And I'm like, yeah, that is a red flag. And I say that not out of judgment because I'm human too. And because I certainly make mistakes in my own relationship for sure. But I think that's been the most surprising thing is that when people really find the content and relate to it somehow in their lives and they find it helpful to be able to implement either this is getting me more clear about what I don't want, or this is actually reaffirming what I kind of already knew that this is a green flag relationship or there are green flags in my relationship. I've been so touched. Most importantly, one of the pieces of the most important parts for me is how kind people have been. Because I
Mm.
also thought the internet, oh my goodness, I'm exposing myself. I'm talking about my marriage at times. I'm talking about my frustrations or my, because I'm human and I want to be relatable. It would be so boring to me to come across as like this expert who sits in an office all day. Like I'm out there living it too. And so that to me was very scary to come out in this way and to gain the followers that I've gained. I'm like, oh, it's just more exposure. I've been so touched, really, really touched and impacted by the level of kindness that people have brought, the
Yeah.
level of such deep curiosity about themselves and their relationships. I had to close my DMs, unfortunately, on TikTok because I kept getting so many people write in. And I'm like, I'm a licensed professional. I can't offer you
Right.
specific support. I would
Yeah.
love to. And there's certain messages that I'm reading that I'm like, I know exactly what I'd tell you if you were my client, but I
Right.
can't. So it's been such a balancing act and a dance. But I think overall, my heart just feels so full with the stories, with the people who've shown up, with the big hearts of people trying to work themselves out to be better, not only in their relationships, but more importantly for themselves.
Yeah. I love that. I love that you've experienced the good side of the internet. It really is like walking down the street naked sometimes when
Oh my
you
goodness, yes.
post a video and it's really close to home and it's candid and you're like, oh, hope nobody I knows watches this because they're going to know who I'm talking about or they're going to know the situation I'm referencing. And yeah, so I appreciate your courage and your vulnerability because people think, oh, well, if you're an expert in this or it's something that you're speaking on, it's easy. And it's just not. It just, at least in my experience, it's the more I only talk about the things I need to learn
Mm.
or the things I'm healing from or the things, and that can suck sometimes to put that out on display. And then, you have a majority of kind comments or useful comments, and then you have the people that are just bored and troll you for funsies, right?
Oh, yes. I get that too. I get that too.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. One of the most terrifying experiences of my life was ending up on Angry Man TikTok. Um, It was brutal. And
Oh.
then, social media, the more people engage with it, the more it pushes it out to the
Mhm.
people they're connected to. So it's like
Mhm.
exponentially terrible things. Now the
Mhm.
engagement's great. Like my
Mhm.
numbers were great, but
Mhm.
the opportunity cost kind of in the corner crying sometimes because I'm like,
Right.
it was not nice. I'm
Right.
just trying to be helpful here.
Right. And I think that's what I try to remember for myself being out there is that I'm a human first and we're all humans. So the message that I always try to give is one of, if your partner, because I talk a lot about couples, obviously, if your partner's doing X, Y, and Z, let's not shame them. Let's not
Right.
tell you as a partner that your partner's terrible. Let's try to understand what their motives are. Let's try to give them maybe some grace or something to figure out kind of how to work through this and offer maybe a little bit of hope. I think that's what I try to
Yeah.
do too. And normalization of like, We're all struggling. I've been a therapist for over 15 years and I still screw up in my marriage. I still do. I say the thing that I know I shouldn't say sometimes or whatever it is. And I go, oh my God, I know better. And I'm like, okay, I'll do better. Let me learn. Let me grow. We're all doing that all the time.
Yeah.
I certainly would. For me, I would never see a therapist who says, I've got it all figured out. I don't need any more support or
No.
help. I'm good.
Right.
So, I'm human. We're all human.
And thank God for that. Cause I think we don't need the machines to tell us how shiny they are. We need people that are in the dirt, that have been through it, that have screwed things up,
Yes.
that have found a better way, that we can
Yes.
model, to your point, a little bit of hope from and a little bit of courage from. And I think you do that boldly and you do that beautifully and you do it in a way that doesn't make people feel stupid,
Yeah.
which I think is also great when you can be like, oh, it's safe for me to learn from this person because they're not teaching me. They're
Right.
walking in it. They're
Right.
walking in it with me.
Yeah.
One of the things that I really love is the tagline on your site that says, love isn't luck, it's
Mm.
skill.
Mhm.
And I
Mhm.
was like, amen,
Mhm.
sister, amen.
Mhm. Mhm.
I think that there's so much disillusionment
Mhm.
of if it isn't easy, it's broken.
Yeah.
Or if it isn't frictionless. Like we want everything is like such a frictionless experience now, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
Nothing's allowed to feel bad, nothing's allowed to take time, nothing's allowed to require effort and the apps don't help. It makes you feel very disposable and very like I call it the falsehood of abundance, right? Like, well,
Mhm.
why would I invest in fixing something when I can just find somebody else or find somebody better or
Right.
upgrade
Swipe to
and
the left or the right.
yeah, so unpack that luck versus skill approach
Yeah.
and what you see as being what people maybe think or assume and what it actually is to find love.
Yeah. Well, I think it's a really good point to talk about dating because I do think in this world, that's sort of how people meet people is online through the apps right now. It's so lovely to think. I used to think when I was single, like I'll meet somebody in the grocery store and my best friend would always say, make sure you look good when you go in the grocery store. Don't look like that. Put on some makeup, like put your
Right,
bra on or
right,
something. And I'm like, but this is so annoying. I really don't care. But she's like, you never know. But I
right.
think these days, the app is really the place to meet people. And I do think there is this false sense of why do we have to try that hard? We'll just go to the next person.
Yeah.
We'll just swipe. And when you get into relationship, I think one of the myths of relationships is that it should be easy,
Mhm.
especially in the beginning. And I really try to debunk that myth because you're coming together as two people who have your family history, your relationship history, and your baggage from your life. And so many people have said to me in the past, well, it's not like, she's not with blah de blah anymore. I'm not him. And I'm like, I get it. But she's bringing all of that with her. And guess
Right.
what, buddy? You bring all of your stuff too. So I think there's this myth that when we fall in love or infatuation or lust or whatever, that should be enough. And it should be easy. And if it's not easy, that means something's wrong.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Mm.
I think it's, again, I talk to so many people about this in my own experience. So I've been divorced 15 years now. Everybody, I think that year one divorce, I always joke it doesn't count. That's when everybody loses their mind and makes all the bad decisions. And then when you start actually like looking for, oh, it'd be nice to maybe have a partner again, or it'd be nice to have a more long-term stable relationship. You get all excited and you download the apps and then you're like, ooh, yeah.
You get the ick. Oh, do I really want to do this?
Yes, and
Mhm.
and then you argue with yourself about, well, I need to like not lower my standards, but it's like I need to be more open, right, to dating people different than who I've dated in the past. But then you start making like concessions to the point where you're like, where's my basement, right?
Right. Where's my bottom line here? It keeps shifting.
It's
Yeah.
like I'm trying really hard to not end up in a dumpster here, and this
Right.
doesn't feel like, that I can definitively say I'm not. But I think that there is this fatigue that comes when the illusion is busted, and it's like, oh, we're all just a bunch of humans with all of our stuff,
Right.
trying to find another human with complementary stuff.
Who wants to be with us and wants to be in relationship and wants, if you want monogamy, nothing against people who don't, that's fine too. But
Right.
it's like all these parts have to kind of line up. It's a miracle that we land up together.
It's
Sometimes.
wild. Yeah.
It is.
It's like, how are there this many disappointments?
Right.
I'm like, yeah, volume's not a problem, right? It's quantity is not a problem. It's the quality piece and I hear that from men, I hear that from women, I hear that
Mhm.
from, from the 20 somethings, I hear that from the 60, like the 60-year-olds that are out there, like it never changes. Like you would
Mhm.
think by then they would have things figured out. And it's like, oh,
Mhm.
not looking for anything serious. It's like, what are you waiting on? Or you don't know what you want. It's like you're 60. How do you not have a
Right.
better idea of what you want? And not to say that in any form of judgment, it's just kind of the reality, the snapshot of what's going on. And it is disheartening. And so I think, there's a lot of people, myself included, that have just kind of taken a break.
Mhm.
I'm on a years long break. Like I don't know if I might be retired at this point.
Mm. Hmm.
I would love to know personally, selfishly, if you are counseling or giving advice to someone who's been off the market by choice for a long time, not because
Mhm.
they're partnered, but because they're disillusioned.
Mhm.
Any
Mhm.
any pro tips on approach or any pro tips on mindset to maybe, download an app or get gussied up for the grocery store?
I think it comes down to why and why now. I
Yes.
think that's when I've worked with people in the past and sort of similar trajectory, going back out there on the dating scene and feeling like, oh, it's just so much work and I keep meeting duds and this is just exhausting and it's deflating. And then always comes the questions, well, maybe my expectations are too high, or maybe I want too much, or that self-doubt that can
Yeah.
be there as well. I think for me, it comes back down to what is it that you're looking for? What
Mm,
is it that you want? And are you ready for that? So when people talk about a dating break, I actually am all for that. There's certain people that I've said, take a break, clearly are not showing up on these dates open and curious and vulnerable and honest. Like, you're annoyed before you've even arrived. So
right,
why
right.
even bother? So I think and I think it's the counterbalance is important too. Knowing when it's time to kind of kick yourself in the bum and go, okay, I'm not going to meet, the pizza delivery person may not be the person. So maybe I need to like put some effort in and put myself out there. So I think the first thing is, what is it that you're looking for? What is it that you want? What is sort of not necessarily missing in your life in this big category, but sort of you're wanting companionship. You want
Yeah.
someone to spend time with. Do you want someone to travel with? Or there may be some people that are like, I want to be married again, or I want a child, or some things like that. So I think getting really, really clear about what you're looking for. I love this idea of 3 must-haves and 3 can't stands, because it kind of
Ooh,
simplifies it a little bit. I got that like
love that.
years ago. Just this idea of like, what are my 3 must-haves that I cannot negotiate on? And what are my 3 can't stands that I'm not willing to negotiate on? And I
Oof.
really held that in the forefront of my mind when I was dating before I met my husband, because I was going through man after man after. I mean, it was just, I thought I was going to have to like retire from dating and just give up, because I really wanted to be in partnership. I did. I really wanted to find somebody.
That's
And I
me.
was like, that's it. I'm done. Maybe
Right.
I'll go join like, don't nuns accept people? I don't know. I don't know. I don't know
Yeah.
where. Maybe I should go like join a religious order or something. I don't know. I don't know what to do. But I realized that if you can stay true to that, because there are some people that need to check their expectations, because there are some people that have a laundry list from A to Z of specifics. But when you boil it down, what I've realized is the main question that I would ask is, how do I feel when I'm with that person?
Mm,
How do I feel? Can I be myself? Can I
yeah.
be open? Can I be vulnerable? Can I be honest? Can I bring up conversations that may feel a little sticky or awkward or cumbersome to have? And then what do they do? Do they welcome it?
Mm.
Do they shut it down? Do they run away?
Yeah, I love that, and I love the simple yet challenging exercise of the 3 must-haves and the 3 can't stands, because what I hear a lot is when I ask somebody what type of partner they're looking for, it's the list of basically who they had before that they don't want again. Well, I
Yeah.
don't want somebody that does this. I don't want somebody I don't want I don't want this, I don't want that. It's like,
Mm,
okay, well, great. Then what do you want? And then there's a long awkward pause. It's like,
mm,
A, you have really the freedom and the responsibility to define
mhm,
what you want.
mhm,
And if you don't, you're going to keep getting what you get, like a
mhm,
random lottery, like a bingo night, right? Like
mhm,
your number might come up or it might not because you haven't decided yeah, your big long list of what you don't want.
Mhm.
Great, good. Filter that.
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
what is it that you do want? And what is it that you want to contribute, which is the other piece of it, right? What are
Yes.
you looking forward to contributing when you're in a relationship or when you're partnered? It's like, oh, well, I just want somebody who does okay, well, great. But what
What
are
are
you
you willing to do?
and it's not the what are you bringing to the table manosphere
Yes.
question, right? It's the really the intentionality, I think, of setting your internal GPS
Mm.
to where you hope to land with a partner, and then you can get off the right exit when you need to if you're not tracking towards the same space.
And I think it makes you less confused because I've also seen where people get into partnership and all of a sudden they get really confused. And I've been there too,
Oh,
where
yeah.
I'm like, well, maybe.
I have talked myself into and out of all sorts of ridiculous things.
Exactly, exactly. And if you really narrow it down, because ultimately I believe, and this is maybe just my opinion, but I'm sure a lot of people who are listening can resonate. I truly believe that in relationship, you want to feel seen, heard, and valued and respected. Like that's what it comes down
Yeah.
to. So, like in my case, when I met my husband, I'd known him for a long time prior in elementary school, and he was dating a friend of mine. I was dating a friend of him. I was never physically attracted to him. He was not my type because in my mind I had my type.
Of
And I was like,
course.
well, he's not my type. So it's not him. Duh. And over time, what I realized is that I felt so amazing when I was with him. I felt so at peace. I felt valued and
Mm,
respected and listened to that it didn't matter. Some of these other pieces that I put into play that I thought really mattered to me didn't matter because of how I felt when I was with him. And the
oof.
parts of myself that could show up and really be present, that became more important than some of the other things that I had listed.
I love that. So it didn't feel like a concession. It felt
No,
like an alignment.
it felt like an alignment. And of course, I mean, I think there's like can we just be really vulnerable and honest? I think when you meet somebody and you're like, oh, they're not going to have like everything I wanted or, X in the bank account, or maybe if you want to travel every week and they can't do that, or maybe, certain things, of course, there's going to be some disappointment. You
Yeah.
have your fantasies in your mind
It's the
of who you're going
opportunity
to,
cost. What are
yes.
you giving up to get what you're gonna have? Yeah.
Exactly, exactly. And I think you bring up a really good point too, Lisa, because there is such value in knowing what we don't want sometimes in order to find out what we do want. But that I think is such an important exercise. If you're in the I don't want this, I don't want that, maybe you've come out of a really bad relationship and there's a lot of fear of repeating the same thing. Doing the exercise of writing down in the positive what you do want, I
Yeah.
think can be really, really helpful. And I think really checking yourself and doing the work of how can I show up as my best self, that I'm not dragging in the past as much as I can. Like we talked about, everybody brings their baggage, but there's a line between what our partner can help us with or what the relationship can help us with, and then what's ours to kind of sort through and
Yeah.
tend to and work through.
Yeah. I wanna go back to something you said when you were talking about the experience you had when you connected with your husband in a more intentional way, was you said you felt at peace.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things I know that you're a big proponent of is, regulating just nervous system regulation. You
Mm-hmm.
have, the regulate before you communicate.
Mm-hmm.
Stumble over that word when that's my whole jam. Can you talk a little bit about the impact and the role that like nervous system regulation plays and either in dating and while you're in a relationship, maybe navigating the friction points?
Yes, I think two things come to mind when you say that. The first is around attachment, which is where I sort of go when I'm thinking about dating. And if people have more anxious attachment or more avoidant attachment, that goes back to our nervous systems. Like, how do we show up in relationship if we're constantly afraid that someone's going to not call us back or never want to date us again
Yeah.
or not be interested? Or the opposite, if we're going to get overwhelmed and we're going to lose our life and we're going to lose our voice and we're going to lose our independence, our nervous systems also start acting up and start doing things. So the nervous system is really important to understand and to know what it is for us, like what our flavor is. Do you show up in dating and relationships as somebody who's a little bit more prone to anxiety or somebody who's a little bit more prone to feeling overwhelmed and flooded by closeness? I think that's a very important distinction. Where that shows up in relationship with the nervous system is I see it a lot in couples who argue. And in the middle of an argument, we say things a lot of the times that we don't mean or
Yeah.
we shouldn't say or things like
Yes, we
that.
do.
Yeah. So again, that's where the nervous system plays into this. I think it's our job to kind of know what we need in the moments of whether you're dating somebody or in a relationship with somebody, of where we tend to go. What are our tendencies and how do we come back to a state of regulation? What does
Mm,
that look like for us? And how do we communicate that to our partners? So, for example, you may be in the middle of an argument with your partner and you may be feeling overwhelmed and you may need like a minute or a break. You don't just walk out the door and drive off. Your responsibility is to tell your partner, "Hey, I'm feeling really flooded right now. I can't think straight. Can we just pause? We'll come back to
mm.
this conversation. I just need a moment to get my nervous system settled." And you can obviously choose your own words, but I think the nervous system plays so much into this. So, for example, when you talk about, I felt at peace with my husband, I do. I feel like the arguments that we have, for the most part, are not going to send me off the edge of like, oh my God, now we're using the D word and, this is going to end and all of that. So I think just being able to track your nervous system on how you feel with somebody gives you so much information. And it's so important to know that for yourself and for the relationship that you're in, whether you're newly dating or in long term.
Yeah, I think that's such an important point, and I would love to get a little bit more tactical on that. If there's like when you feel yourself, a lot of people call it triggered, right? A lot
Hmm.
of people call it, you get to that point in the argument, and you're like, oh, here we effing
Game
go,
on.
right? Here we go.
Yep.
Let's run the script,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
What might that feel like in your body, like the early warning system?
Mm.
Are there some physiological cues that we can start
Hmm.
looking for? Because I feel like this is for people that are curious, that maybe aren't really familiar with kind of the role that the nervous system plays, or what the root of being triggered is, or we
Hmm.
just know we don't feel good and we want
Yes.
out of it, or we want to fight, or whatever your flavor of managing through that is. What are some early warning signs that we might be more mindful of in our body, or that we're feeling, that could be like, okay, now is a good time to start thinking of de-escalation or creating space versus
Yes.
running the script again and taking it to 100?
Yes. I think in order to have that conversation, it may be helpful to couch it in a very common dynamic that I see couples go through in the heat of escalation or charge in their relationship when people start getting activated. Sue Johnson, who is a psychologist, came up with a body of work theory called emotionally focused therapy. And she talks
Mm,
about, in conflict, we usually take one or the other kind of parts. And one of the most common is the pursuer withdrawer cycle. She talks about this. The pursuer is somebody, when escalation happens, when activation happens, when something starts happening in your relationship that's not positive, you start getting into a fight, or here we go. One person, the pursuer, usually wants to talk about it right now. Can we talk about it right now? Can we get through the facts? Like, I'm not going to bed mad. I have to talk about it. Stay here and talk about it. And if they feel like they're not being heard by their partner, who is usually the withdrawer, which we'll get to in a moment, they get louder and louder and louder and
mm,
louder and more activated. And now you're on top of the rooftop screaming, trying desperately to get your partner's attention.
right.
Why aren't you listening to me? The withdrawer feels all of this as pressure. And so when things start to heat up in the relationship in a negative way, what their go to move is to get away from the heat. Like, let's calm this down. Why would we entertain this conversation right now? We got to turn
Right.
this down. I need a minute. I'm going to stop talking. I'm going to move away from you. I'm going to maybe leave or go to the bedroom. They're usually the withdrawers because they are trying their best to de escalate their nervous system
Mm,
and to calm things down by taking space. Pursuer is trying to de escalate their nervous system by talking about it. And the withdrawer is trying to de escalate their nervous system and the situation by moving away.
and those people always marry each other, don't they?
Somehow they find each other. Somehow I'm a pursuer in my relationship. I'm totally a pursuer. I want to talk about it right now. And
Yeah.
it's not that it's bad. It's just a tendency that we fall into,
Yeah.
And you're right. Usually we're with one or the other. And it's interesting because sometimes the pursuer can kind of link up as a more anxious attachment.
Mm.
And somebody who's more of withdrawer can sometimes link up with an avoidant attachment. So just thinking about how all these kind of puzzle pieces weave together. So in terms of knowing that, do you fall more into the pursuer? Are you with somebody that's more like a withdrawer? Will
Mm.
already give you a lot of information when things start to go south in your conversation or your
Yeah.
relationship.
Yeah. Yeah. Cause and you think about, like, you're talking about this dynamic, and I'm literally running. We had an argument that could have been a script, right? Like the
Yep.
kicking off point could be different, but
Yep.
the script when it ran, right? We
Yep.
could basically just be like, can we just skip this? Because we already know, like, I know what you're gonna say, you know what I'm gonna say. We know, like, can we just save our energy and just skip it? Because
Yes.
it was literally that predictable. And I'm sitting here in my body, like feeling that feeling, right? The like, oh my God, here we go. Right.
Yes.
Here we go again. And
Yes.
I think for so many people, you can only run the cycle so many times before you
Mhm.
start questioning, before you end up listening to the Divorce Curious podcast.
Mhm. Mhm.
Because you're like,
Mhm.
I literally cannot have this argument one more.
And I think that is where so many couples get stuck. That
Yes.
point right there.
So
There's
how do we,
yes,
outside of
yes,
getting divorced, which is
yeah,
expensive and painful, like what
yes,
can you coach us through? Like
yes,
maybe
yes.
not do that all the time?
Well, I just want to name how painful that is because you're absolutely right. You're not talking about the topic of the day, whether it's the dishes, the trash can, the dog, the kids, the whatever. You're really talking about what feels so painful are these things, this negative cycle that you get stuck in. And it's so exhausting because you both feel like you're just spinning your wheels in this pattern and you're not getting to the other side. You're
Yep.
not seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. You're now even more exhausted, more resentful, feel less seen. And I'm telling you, as a couples therapist, usually most of the time, both people feel that way. It's not just one person,
Oh yeah. No,
it's both of you.
you're both real sick of it.
Yes, yes. And the pursuer usually feels like, you're not listening to me, you're not hearing me. And the withdrawer usually feels like, oh, there I go again. I got it wrong again. I did it wrong again.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So this is where a lot of couples come into couples therapy. And this is where the way that I've studied is such an important part to start pulling back kind of what the negative cycle is. And
Mm.
okay, here we go. This is why it feels so exhausting. You want to talk about things. You want to back up and take a break. And when you back up, your partner feels completely rejected and abandoned. And around you go. And then no one talks about that. No one does any repair on
Right.
what just happened. And then we just tuck that resentment under the carpet until the next time something happens. And then we trip over all of that, including the thing that we're fighting about today.
Yep.
So,
Wow. Almost like you lived in my house, Melissa. Like that's exactly if I had to draw it on a whiteboard,
yes,
that
yes.
would be the process.
And Sue Johnson talks a lot about, which I think is so helpful, is that a lot of times in this process, when people are stuck in the negative cycle, they look to their partner and they go, well, you're the problem. It's
Of course.
because of you, right? You won't leave me alone. You keep nagging me. And the other partner's going, well, you don't listen to me. Of course I have to get critical. Of
Right.
course I have to get loud. Of course I have to keep poking you because you're not listening. So you get stuck in a negative cycle. So the first step is understanding that you're stuck in a negative cycle. The second thing that I see as a couples therapist is people don't, on either side usually, even though if you're more of a pursuer, you want to talk about it, but you don't want to go back and unpack what happened. So when life kind of resumes and you sort of move on, even though you haven't really tackled the thing that just happened, no one does any repair usually.
Mm.
To come back to the table and say, you know what? I did that thing again. That where I kind of back up and I go to my room and I close the door or I go to my phone or I put on music. And your partner says, I did that thing too, where I kind of keep nagging you to death or I keep wanting to talk about it. And I'm sorry I said those things. And your partner says, you know what? I get it. I shouldn't have said that either. Because that's all on top of what the real need is underneath and the real longing. I can tell you with almost certainty, most people that I see in my practice just want to feel at peace with their partner and want to feel connected. And when they realize that their partner is actually trying in their ways to do the same thing, it's kind of revolutionary. They're like, wait, what? All of that is a protest because they want to feel closer to me? You mean they love me most in the world and they're doing this to try to get my attention to change the relationship to make it better? What?
Yeah.
It's a mind shift and you need support for that. It's really hard to do it on your own in a couple.
Right. That's what I was just going to ask. What do you see as being the reason that the repair process doesn't happen? Is it we don't know it's an option? Is it we don't have the dialogue for it? Is it that it re-escalates something that we've already moved beyond? Like, is it one partner trying to repair and the other being like, I don't even want to talk about it? Like,
It's all of
the
that.
above? Yeah.
It's all of that. It's all of that. I mean, when we get into relationships, we think that love is going to be enough, and we are not given a manual on how to handle this. We're not given the tools on how to repair. We're not given the tools on how to make good deposits into our relationship to make it sustainable and last the test of time. Like, we're not given much of anything, really,
Yeah.
given what our parents teach us, which, can go either way on that.
Right, which is usually not helpful.
Right. So, in terms of why repair doesn't happen, I think a lot of people start thinking, this is what I say a lot in my platforms on social media, is that healthy couples do argue. And a lot of people are surprised by that. Like,
Yeah.
what? That's a thing?
We don't want friction.
Right. Right. And so I think there's a sense of panic. I think a lot of people, just what you said, like, I don't want to go back and open this wound back up. Some people, I think, try to have the conversation too soon when they're still escalated and they haven't done the
Mhm.
work to kind of bring their own nervous system down to be open and receptive to what
Yeah.
their partner's saying. So then they kind of blunder through it and they go, well, that didn't work. There's so many reasons. And I do think the repair process is really helped by a skilled therapist who can help kind of the dialogue and sometimes act as a mediator. Like, really, that's sometimes what we're doing of like, okay, you need to stop talking, or like in a nice way, like, can we
Right.
pause?
The neutral third party who's not an
Yes.
emotional stakeholder to win or
Yes.
lose in an argument. Yeah.
Correct. Correct. So it's
So
it's hard to do in the moment.
yeah, it really is. And again, I'm kind of, time traveling back into some of those conversations and how even repair could go, the attempted repair could go terribly wrong. What I am hearing a lot right now is that there is a marked level of difference in the amount of work towards repair that one partner is willing to do than the other. Like
Mhm.
it's they are in it to win it. They want to learn the skills. They want to, maybe it's they want to go to therapy. Maybe it's they just want to have more meaningful conversations, and they are met with disinterest. They're met
Yeah.
with that's dumb. They're met with we're fine.
Mhm.
They're just dismissed in that
Mhm.
to varying degrees of abruptness.
Mhm.
What do you have to offer those people? And it's not always women or men. I hear it more from women, but I also know men that have had that challenge with their spouses. What do you do when you feel like you're barking up the wrong tree on wanting to repair or wanting to learn the skills?
I think there's a line in relationship where what we can do for ourselves crosses over into what we need from our partners, right? So we can
Mhm.
do all the work, we can read the books, we can listen to the podcasts, we can go to therapy ourselves. If we want to be in relationship with somebody that is not open at all to change, is not open at all to feedback, it's a very, very, very difficult place to be. It's an extremely difficult place to be. And that's where I see a lot of people start questioning, is this the relationship for me?
Yeah.
Because I don't know if my partner cares enough to not only try to change, but to even hear me, to even have the
Yeah.
conversation. And there are plenty of people who come into therapy where, one of the people are saying, I'm kind of dragging my partner. I'm like, it's okay, bring him in. I'm used to it. Not a big deal. Like, we don't have to be buying this hook, line, and sinker yet. Don't worry, I'll get them. Usually I try to figure out an angle of buy-in of like, why are you in this then? If your partner is telling you this hurts them, if your partner is telling you this matters to them, like, take them seriously. And if the partner is sort of checked out for whatever reasons make sense to them, I always believe that reasons that we do things make sense to us, even if it doesn't make sense to our partner. It's a very difficult place to be. And I think then you have to start asking yourself the question, is this enough for me? Am I
Yeah.
willing to stay in this with what I have?
Yeah. So the other interesting dynamic that I'm seeing, and I'm just curious from a collective standpoint, if you see this as well, is like, there's all the statistics about, oh, the majority of divorces are now initiated by women. And, they kind of get villainized for that. And what seems to be I'll use it as a personal musing. I won't go too far in it, but I assume with a fair degree of confidence that if the woman doesn't initiate divorce, that their partner receives enough benefit from having that partner versus not having that partner that they'll write it out no matter how bad it is, as long as
Mhm.
they're allowed to.
That's
There's
your
still
theory.
enough upside. I'm just curious, like this. I just had this conversation. I've had it like 3 times in the last 2 weeks, which is why it's on the top of my mind. Is like, well, yeah, that partner's life gets harder without you.
Mhm.
So it's worth putting up with whatever the okay, you're mad for a couple days, you do silent treatment, whatever. You'll come around, you'll be fine. You're
Mhm.
gonna go take that vacation or show up at that company event and
Mhm.
It,
We'll
their
move on.
life, their life is still better with you there than having to go through the pain of sorting it out on their own at some
Mhm.
point.
Mhm.
Which to me screams hostage situation, but I get it. I get it. Is that an anomaly? Is that common? Is there any observations in your own practice that you see where maybe that there is some writing it out until somebody decides to do something about it?
I think that, for me, I work with couples of all kinds. And so I really try to stay away from like this is a woman problem or this is a
Right.
man problem or,
Right.
in those terms. But I'm just thinking and I also admittedly work in shades of gray every day, all day. And
Yeah.
so to me, every situation is unique. And I'm just trying to put myself into that idea of somebody staying in something that, yeah, there must be a benefit. I mean, there has to
Oh
be,
yeah.
or else,
House is clean, kids are fed, carpool's
right,
handled, like
right, right.
annoying but not terrible,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
there's just a tolerance for
Right.
like
Right.
the
And I'm
pain threshold
sure.
isn't enough to make them taking action be a thing.
Right. And then I start thinking about, affairs. I start thinking about,
Mhm.
like how closely are you living? I mean, to me, it doesn't sound like a happy partnership if that's what's
Right.
happening in the
Right.
relationship on either end. Could it get better? It sounds like that. But going back to your original point, if you're with somebody who's not willing to try, who's not willing to change, who's not willing to hear you, it's a very difficult. It's like talking to a rock. It's a very
Yeah.
difficult relationship to have because when we're in relationship, when we're in healthy relationship, we want there to be an ebb and a flow. We want there to be, sometimes you give, sometimes you take,
Yeah.
sometimes there are hard seasons, but that you feel at the end of the day, you're both working towards a mission together. You're both working towards a goal together, if that's what you both are choosing.
Yeah. And a lot of people that listen to this and watch this, they're in that spot. I have this conversation a lot where it's like, well, there's nothing really wrong, but I'm not happy. I don't feel like we're connected. I feel alone.
Mhm.
I feel like,
Mhm.
but he doesn't hit me. And
Mhm.
there's not financial abuse. There's not physical abuse. There's not like,
Mhm.
he's a good, nice guy. He's a
On
good
paper,
dad. He
he looks great.
loves him. He's got a good job. There's nothing wrong. What?
I would say, what is it then? What is it that's sort of not being met? And I do hear this a lot where maybe some bids for connection are missed, or maybe the person's not emotionally kind of listened to. There's usually something like, every time I talk to my partner, they're on their phone, or every time I say, let's spend time together, they just don't seem interested. They seem
Yeah.
kind of checked out. And so that to me is sort of one person holding the emotional load of the relationship by themselves. And that's
Mm,
where I hear a lot of people feeling like, oh, I
yep.
feel like I'm alone in my relationship, or I feel like we're roommates, or I feel like we're transactional with each other. And I know that we have two small kids in my house, and my husband and I are all day, every day, trading negotiations and transaction. And it's so easy. Just even today, he got back from a work trip, and I said, when are we going to have time for just us? But I
Right.
think those are the skills that we're also not taught, how to add those deposits into the bank of our relationship
Yeah.
so that when we do hit hard seasons, we have some buffering. I don't think a lot of people know that. I think a lot of people just rightly so get caught up in life and chaos and stress and the task at the moment and forget that, you want to nurture your relationship too.
Yeah.
It's really important.
Yeah. It seems like a lot of those conversations with the nothing's really wrong, but then there's like a feeling of guilt or selfishness that they aren't just okay. Like it should be enough, or like they're selfish for wanting more or being happy. Like it's this weird like, and again, and these most of these conversations that I'm having in that realm are with women.
Mm,
And there's like this painful conflict of
hmm.
like not feeling grateful for the
Being
okay,
good enough.
but
Right.
we're feeling selfish for like, I want to be desired. I want to be
Hmm.
acknowledged. I want to be connected. Like, which those are not unreasonable things, I don't think. But there's the women in particular that I talk to and work with seem to have this really like guilt ridden, I'm selfish, I'm bad for wanting to be happy. Why can't I just be satisfied? Like there's this real internal thing that just really tears them up.
I definitely have heard that for sure in my work with couples, with individuals. To me, that feels like the slow emotional drift. And a lot of
Mm.
people think that relationships end because of one big dramatic
Yeah.
thing. And a lot of times they don't. It's
Yeah.
like that every day, day to day. either those small moments where you're not able to connect or those small moments that kind of pull the fabric of your relationship apart.
Mm.
So when I hear somebody, if we're using the case example of a woman who's in her marriage and feels lonely and sort of like, I should just be grateful because I have someone and the grass isn't always greener and they're sort of living in all of this fear. I would think back to a time of, okay, so how did the drift happen? And when did the drift happen? And when you first got together, how did it feel? And how did you feel showing up with this person? And did you make your relationship a priority or did life get in the way?
Yeah.
And so when I hear relationships like that, I'm thinking to myself, number one, I just want to say, don't feel guilty for wanting more. Of course you should want more.
Yeah.
You should want to be happy in your relationship. You would want to be getting something out of it for sure. I think the second piece is really doing the inner work of understanding what is it exactly that I'm unhappy with? What is it that I'm yearning for or wanting or needing? Because usually we all have that thing where we go, I know exactly what it is. I know what
Mhm.
it is. And we fill in the blank. And then really asking yourself, to not give up hope that maybe there is a way to shift that drift that is caused in your relationship in order to come back to the table. Are you with somebody who's willing to try again with you, who's willing to invest again in the relationship to create more closeness together? Because to me, it's not over. And maybe sometimes it is, maybe sometimes
Right.
it is. But it doesn't always mean that when there's that drift in your relationship. It means like, okay, let's pay attention to it. Can we add more back into our relationship? And that's where we usually see a lot of people come into therapy,
Yeah.
which I will say they've done studies to show this. I need to find the study. I think they've done studies to show this that a lot of couples wait to come into couples therapy longer than they should have. And so
For sure.
I am not plugging couples therapy at all. Like, if that's not your jam, that's totally
Yeah.
fine. But for people who are curious about it, for people who are like, wow, I feel like maybe, are we that bad that we need couples therapy? Come in sooner rather than later. And I just think that it can help. It can help when you're feeling that drift. It can help you really get clear about, is this the one for me to keep adding back into the relationship and seeing if we can make it work? Or do I need to get clear that maybe this is not the relationship for me?
Yeah. I love that. And I co-sign on the sooner rather than later
Yes.
point. Okay. I know we're running long, but I got one more question. I'd love to get your
Sure.
take on. There also seems to be I'm just thinking of the conversations I'm having most frequently here. There seems to also be a trend where one partner has done a lot of work on themselves, whether
Yep.
it's healing journeys, it's new practices, it's really leveling up, right?
Yep.
Like spiritually, emotionally, physically, whatever. Like they've been on this journey and their partner hasn't been.
Hmm.
And so they find themselves like what was fine when you're 22 or 25. Now you've done all this work. You've discovered these things about you. You're rooted in your identity and there's a chasm between
Yes.
like the partner hasn't been interested in the growth journey or doesn't
Hmm.
even understand or makes fun of or
Hmm.
discourages the growth journey, right? Is outgrowing each other, is that like a real thing that is, I don't want to say justification for, but is that a, because they're also like, well, now I feel guilty because I did things and I shouldn't expect my partner to also do things, but now here we are and it's like,
Hmm. Hmm.
any thoughts around how to
Yeah.
navigate that
Yeah.
or manage through that?
Most people, when they get married, are very different than who they are 15,
I
10,
would hope so.
20,
I would
30
hope so.
years. I know. I think about myself. I'm like, thank
Right,
goodness I've matured and grown up since I
right.
got married.
Yeah.
And I think it goes back to, again, having the tools in your tool belt to know how to nurture the relationship and grow together. If
Mm,
you find yourself that you're at a stage where maybe you didn't have the tools or life happened and got in the way, or the two of you just drifted apart and now it's sort of irreconcilable, I think that that is absolutely a thing. I think it always comes back to, what are two people willing to do
mm,
to shift, to change, to integrate, to prioritize the relationship in order to make it work. And that really takes two people saying, you know what, I get it now and I'm willing to shift and change. If you're in a relationship and you have evolved and you find yourself so different and you're with somebody that maybe shames you or makes you feel bad for doing the self embetterment work, I really think that's a big moment to kind of question, can this keep going? Because, are they willing to meet me? Are we willing to grow together in order to make this work? For some people that's a yes, and for some people that's unfortunately no.
Mm,
So yeah, it does happen.
love that. That's a whole word. That's a whole episode right there on its own. That topic is coming up so hot and heavy. So hot. I mean, people are just there is like a rapid evolution, I think, whether it's through personal growth, spiritual growth, changing views on everything from politics to
Oh
economics,
yeah.
lifestyle to like it seems like now there's more reasons or more opportunities than ever to really find yourself misaligned from someone that you really were kind of running parallel paths with for a long time. And there's a lot of people that are like, A, how did we get here? And B, what do I do now?
Yeah, and I think the bottom line for that is, again, having the tools in your tool belt to nurture your relationship along the way so that you don't get there. But if you do find yourself there, so maybe you're misaligned politically, let's just say, because that's such a hot topic these days. Okay, well, what else do you get out of the relationship? What else is there? Is that enough for you to be able to be misaligned politically? Or is that kind of your hill that you're going to stand on and that's the end? Like, I could never be with somebody who did
Yeah.
blah, 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 blah. I think it's getting really clear about that and having those conversations, and also I was reading a statistic the other day about how people think about divorce way, and I've seen this with people too in my practice, way before they even mention it to their partner. I think having those conversations with your
Yeah.
partner and giving them the opportunity to grow with you, giving them the
Right.
opportunity to work with you, I think is also really something to remember as well.
Yeah. I think you owe it to somebody to let them know the specific problem that they could then have an opportunity to at least try to solve or have an
Exactly.
awareness of. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
well said.
I agree. And we think we're being so obvious. Like there's a bunch of studies about like even in nonverbal communication, we think we're so obvious with our intent, even around cues of attraction, right? Oh, we're so obvious. And
Yes.
you gotta the guy has to see the same cue 17 times before they pick up that you're like enter we're not as obvious as we think we are. So I love just that direct, I always bring it back to communication somehow. That's my jam. But yeah, the direct communication and giving somebody a good faith opportunity to choose to work towards solving the problem or to opt out. And both pieces of data are pretty powerful points of data,
Yeah.
I think.
And I also say we're not mind readers. We're not meant to be
Right.
mind readers, and we're not mind readers. And I've heard in a lot of relationships, well, they should just know. No, they don't know. They don't know. You
Right.
need to tell them. Right.
Or I say people are way dumber and less aware than we think they are. Like I call it stupid explicit. Like be stupid explicit with your communication. Do not assume we have the same, like common sense doesn't exist. It makes me laugh when somebody's like, well, it's just common sense. I'm like, common for who? In what sense are you
Mm,
referencing?
right.
Right? Like,
Right.
let's dispel the mystery.
Yes.
Okay, I literally could talk to you forever. I very well may be hitting you up for a part 2 or a whole
Okay.
series because
Okay.
this was awesome. But okay, here's what I want. Here's what I want to do. I want you to tell people because this is literally barely scratching the surface on
Uh-huh.
all of the great tools and
Uh-huh.
insights that you provide, bite-sized and more in depth and mini courses and lots of things. So where can people go to
Yes.
learn more from you, connect with some resources and get the support that they need?
So our practice, I own and run a group practice, a psychotherapy practice out of New York City. We're only able, because of our licensing, to see people in Connecticut, New York, and New Jersey. That is embracingjoy.com. And then if you want, I have a couple free downloads. I have a free attachment style quiz and I have a free conflict decoder, which are great
Love
resources for
that.
people. That is on embracingjoyconsulting.com. And that is also where I have my courses listed. And if you'd like to follow us on socials, you can go to Instagram. It's Embracing Joy Psychotherapy. TikTok is Embracing Joy NYC. And then I'm on YouTube as well. So
Awesome. And
I'd
and
love
I'll
help.
link all of that up. Oh, there's a dog bark. I thought we were going to get through a whole episode without chaos. But here we are. I love when life shows up. But I'll commit to those of you listening and watching to this. Check the show notes or the comments. I'll link all the places that Melissa just referenced up so you can just click and go. I want to make it as easy as possible for you to see as much of Melissa as you possibly can. I mean, if the last hour didn't just convince you that it's worth a follow on TikTok and Instagram and YouTube and connecting at the website, and the downloads are awesome. The tools are great. I would encourage you ponder. We
Right.
covered a lot of territory, everything from getting clear on what you want when you're dating to try to working on, work towards repair
Yes.
conflict in your relationships. Wherever you are in your relationship journey or your divorce curious journey, I want you to take this as like an office hours. Listen to it again. You gave a whole handful of exercises that, you don't have to do anything more than listen to this, grab your journal, grab a notebook, get honest with yourself, and then start thinking about, what's the next best set of tools or support. Here at Divorce Curious, I'm all about helping you figure out the next right thing for you wherever you're at. And I think today has been just an absolute treasure trove of great perspective and guidance from a professional and a pile of tools to help you ponder a little bit further. And then I have the Evaluate Your Marriage workbook that you can always download as well at lisamitchell.biz. So that's another resource for you too. But listen to it again. And then I know somebody popped into your head as you were listening or watching this today. Send this to them. Introduce them to Melissa. Let them know that she's here to support in their journey, and she has a tool for everything. And so I want you to share it and like it and comment. Let us know what you want us to cover on round 2. If Melissa's gracious enough to accept another invitation to come back and yap with me for an hour. But until then, Melissa, thank you so much for joining us today. And friends that are watching and listening to this, I hope you stay curious and feel good about your next best decision.